It's been nearly a decade, you know that? I've been at these videos for nearly a decade of my life. And this isn't some video about, oh, where's the time gone? No, certainly not. I know exactly where it's gone. But it's been a while since I've made one of these rambling videos of my thoughts, and it's about time for another. We'll say this one's about time itself, because why not? A great example of time's passage in action? I don't really make Let's Plays anymore. I used to. It used to be the case that the content on my channel was focused around Let's Plays, because it allowed me to easily substantiate my criticisms and praise for games in detail. It also showed off mechanics in many ways most people hadn't seen them used or considered before. But the analysis-style videos I make now are just better for my mental health, and far less taxing. Time changes things. Or perhaps it's more correct to say things change with time. There's a video on this channel titled, Why I Think Banjo-Kazooie is Bad and Awful. I don't really agree with that video anymore. I still don't like Banjo-Kazooie, but I'd no longer consider it bad or awful. It's simply a game without the elements I consider valuable in a 3D platformer, and I think it's less creative mechanically than its contemporaries. That video's still up though, and so are at least 2,000 other videos of mine. Do I agree with all the things I said in every one of those? No, of course not. And I won't lie, it would be super easy to click on an old video I made, find an opinion I no longer hold, and run away with it. I even disagree with some videos I made just a couple months ago, probably. I don't have the time to rewatch them all or place disclaimers on them, and removing them would violate my own moral stance on removing artistic work. The worst I do is unlist certain videos, but I'll always hand them out if asked. I'm a relatively low-risk person for targeted harassment, but the digital age is kind of wild, because if I weren't, I'd be screwed. It's all too common to violently thrash against a person who holds ideas deemed troublesome, perhaps even ostracize them from society altogether. This would be terrible even if people were static objects who never grow or develop, but we aren't. Everyone changes. None of us are the same person we were last month. Hopefully none of us are the same person we were last week. Every day I consider new ways to approach how I speak and behave to better myself as a person. There's a lot of psychological damage done by people who think they're on the side of justice. And if you're in a large crowd rallying against a single person you barely even know, you're not the good guy. You're not helping. You probably just want to hurt someone you don't like. People age and opinions change. You want to know something that doesn't age, though? Video games and their content. I've said it before, I'll probably say it thousands of times again until everyone around me retches at the assertion. There is no such thing as a game which doesn't hold up anymore. There's no such thing as outdated design or outdated art. Art is not expired milk. Art is a picture of creativity, captured in essence, sometimes including elements of our past, sometimes not, which we choose to engage with, and can do so just as readily now as decades ago in most cases. In particular, video games are designed with their limitations in mind. Not always to circumvent them, but to explore those limitations to their fullest potential. If you can't move around the camera with the right analog stick, good news, the developers knew you couldn't. They're on the same page, and so you're provided with game design and challenges which adequately account for that handicap. Many older games even thrive because they find creative methods to exploit ideas and mechanics we all take for granted in modern titles. I cannot stand hearing, blah blah, there's only one character and the game mechanics are simplistic. That's not what matters. Games are not a big backpack you stuff with as much garbage as possible until it's bursting at the seams. A game's quality is not measured by the volume of its content. It is the heart that matters, the spirit, what the content says, how well its design conveys its intention, and what kind of ideas it has to offer. If one approaches games willing to engage with them on their own terms, a heart full of wonder and love, They'll perhaps even find things that were occasionally better way back when, and these old titles Grandpa rambles on about. One of the most obnoxious topics involving this video game discourse is technological advancement. Yeah, it's probably a good thing that we can do more and more, opening up greater creative possibilities. So, why is it all being devoted to making games more ostentatious and hyper-realistic? I saw that new Matrix Unreal Engine playable demo thing. It doesn't look photorealistic, and in a year or two we're going to be talking about how bad it looks. Does it look bad? No. Will it look bad in the future? I don't think so, no. But it focuses on all the things I find nauseating about AAA development. The trailer spouts a bunch of pseudo-philosophical garbage, and then you're treated to the least substantial vertical slice I've seen yet. The characters spout empty, wafer-thin one-liners, cars explode, and there are occasional surface-level references to things you probably like. The gameplay is not really gameplay. It's interactive, but you're not being sold a game here. You're not being sold the trashy, brain-dead dialogue, either. You're being sold sparkles and shiny things. There's no substance, there's no depth, there's nothing to get attached to beyond the wow factor. It's the same as the newer Ratchet and Clank games, pretty on the surface, lacking in detail and heart. If you tried to have a lasting, meaningful long-term relationship with Rift Apart or the Matrix demo, you'd be solely disappointed. Even aside that, you know what's one of the prettiest games I've ever seen? Floating Runner on the original PlayStation. It was intimately aware of its technical limitations, but rather than scrape against them to press for hyper-realism or high-fidelity textures, it utilized its shortcomings to create ethereal, surreal landscapes made of abstract pastel polygons, perfectly encapsulating the otherworldly atmosphere of its setting. The companies who perpetuate this race for greater and greater realism are the same massive AAA publishers the gaming community regularly whines about. They stifle creativity, engage in abhorrent business practices, regularly try to erase or rewrite gaming history, and care more about numbers than you can possibly fathom. And that's where the video was gonna end, but I'd be remiss not to mention the Wii U eShop's closure. Now, sure, it's true there weren't many celebrated digital exclusives on the Wii U, but it's all still art, still worth preserving. On Nintendo's website, the FAQ explains that it's natural for a service to be discontinued when people no longer use it. That's fair. But the service is buying product they want to sell, because they believe it'll make them money. If the product no longer makes them money, why not give it away for free now, instead of wiping it from the face of the earth? Sadly, that's not on their FAQ. The biggest reason the Wii U's eShop closure reeks, though, is that it by far had the best virtual console of any Nintendo system. You could easily locate and purchase a ton of rare first and third-party titles from the Game Boy Advance, Nintendo DS, and many other systems. The Wii U's unique hardware allowed for better emulation of handheld titles too, and it's where all my Animal Crossing Wild World videos came from. When the Wii U's eShop dies, a lot of history is going with it. Time marches on, and there's no stopping it, but we shouldn't pretend there's also no stopping capitalism.